Fasting is another word that is used outside of Christian circles that simply means not eating for a while. Somebody may fast before going into surgery so that the food isn't being digested during the surgery itself, or people might go on a water-only fast to help clear out their digestive system and clean it up a bit. The process of fasting is the same for Christians, although the purpose of it is different and more spiritual. In order for us to understand this new purpose, we must first take a look at the origins of where fasting came from. Before fasting was used in a religious context, it was used culturally for usually the same type of purpose. Let's say you lived a few thousand years ago and somebody murdered a member of your family and then fled for a nearby city. Not wanting the murderer to get away unpunished, you would most likely rally the remaining members of your family to set out after the murderer in order to get your revenge. Wanting to catch up to them before they made it to the next city, you would make a vow with your family members, saying something along the lines of, "We will not eat or drink anything until this murderer is dealt with, so that we will remain focused on our goal and not waste any time." This was something that was fairly commonplace during these time periods. Other times when a declaration like this would be made would include things such as preparing for a coming attack, navigating through a dangerous area, or respecting the memory of someone who passed away. To put it simply, fasting was seen as putting aside for a short time something that was done regularly in order to deal with an important event that had already happened, was currently taking place, or was about to take place. We fast the same way in our culture today without even thinking of it as fasting. For instance, let's say you're about to go on a lunch break at work when you receive a call that your mom has gotten into a car accident and is being rushed to the hospital. Without making a conscious effort, you resolve in your mind that you're not going to take your lunch, or even continue working until you go to the hospital and make sure your mom is alright. An important event interrupts your life, so you set aside your normal routine in order to address the issue. This is how fasting should work in the Christian world too. The only difference being that instead of dealing with a physical matter, you're dealing with a spiritual matter. Maybe someone asks you to share with a large crowd of people the things that God has done in your life, and you want to take some extra time to prepare for it and ask God for strength to get through it. Or perhaps you're struggling with an addiction and don't want to put yourself in a position where you'd be tempted to give into it. These would be the kind of situations where you would probably fast. Now, unlike the traditional definition of fasting, the type of fasting you do might not always be one of fasting food. Let's take the addiction example I gave. If you were dealing with an alcohol addiction, and would normally spend time with friends at a bar every Friday night, you might choose to fast going to the bar on Friday nights with your friends until you have that addiction under control. This is also a good time for me to point out the difference between fasting and discipline. Fasting is putting something completely aside for a short time to deal with an issue before returning to that thing. The thing that's being fasted is always something that's not bad on its own. Eating, or simply going to a place that serves alcohol, is completely fine. There just may be times when you need to put it aside for a while to deal with another issue. Discipline, on the other hand, is about either staying away from something harmful or practicing moderation with something that is taking over your life. For instance, I've heard of Christians who admit to having a bit of an addiction to Facebook, to the point where they will spend hours a day on it and avoid the other responsibilities that they have because of it. They then decide to take a fast from Facebook for a week. So they stay off Facebook for a week, but after that week is over, they go back to spending hours on it just as they did before. This is an example where instead of fasting to deal with the problem, they should practice discipline and moderation to work on cutting back the amount of time they spend on Facebook. However, they may decide to fast from using the computer for a while in order to begin the process of disciplining themselves to deal with the problem, and that's okay too. It's just important to understand the difference. You practice discipline to deal with something that is a problem, and you fast one thing in order to deal with something else, because fasting is always just for a short time with a plan to return to it once that time has passed. So then, How important is fasting? Well, to illustrate this, there was a time in the Bible when Jesus' disciples tried to cast out a demon and weren't able to succeed. When they asked Jesus why they failed, he told them it was because they hadn't taken the time to pray and fast before attempting it. Fasting is a powerful tool that we can use, and we should use it regularly to prepare for and deal with difficult situations. If you want more information about any of this, or have a question or comment for me about this topic or another topic, remember that you can always email me at sermoninthepocket@gmail.com. And if you like what I'm doing and want to support this podcast, I also have a Patreon by the same title, Sermon in the Pocket. Thanks for taking the time to listen, and have a wonderful day.